Hang on, Mr. Douglas. Yeah.
We are at it again, and it's Chapter 13 time from Ingo Swann, Secrets of Power, Volume 1. The title of this chapter, and welcome, great to have you here. The title of this chapter is Indigenous Depowerment and Personal Empowerment. And this chapter is fully loaded with some high nutrient packets of information. The chapter opens with discussing how when you talk to most people about depowerment, most people comprehend, understand, or grok that there's some kind of depowerment going on. However, there are some people that would consider themselves in the club, whether they are or not, and those people have a hard time discussing the idea of societal program depowerment, because that doesn't feel very egalitarian, very ethical. And so, quoting Ingo here, any opening up of depowerment discussions signifies something of a dreaded horror within most societal power management systems. Those people nervous about discussing depowerment probably have some connection to or cog in the machine of that power management system. Now, Ingo goes on in this chapter to discuss egalitarianism in some detail, summing up that egalitarianism is a wonderful idea and everybody should partake and participate except for the powerful, because the powerful are powerful and they don't want to share that power. Ingo says, it is possible to think that egalitarianism just might be feasible with regard to just about everything, excepting males, females, and most certainly power. One merely needs to consider the real and ongoing existence of force power and stealth power to conclude that egalitarianism was engineered, perhaps on Venus, Ingo says, but clearly not on Earth, and certainly not from within a serious consideration of our power species. Ingo goes on mentioning that, there is a hidden map of depowerment tactics, applied depowerment skills and maneuvers, special moves, Hadoukens, that are used, that are incorporated and executed by these societal power managers. And referencing back to that egalitarian situation, Ingo says that the, revelation of this hidden map would certainly bring our species closer to the idea of egalitarianism in that it would level the playing field quite a bit. But, Ingo says, here again is the bad dream of societal power managers working on behalf of the powerful few. And again, those powerful few will not want to share. Understandable as we look at the system in place that we are existing in today. Moving on, Ingo discusses the words and their prefixes, empower and depower, and how they infer an active change of state. It's a movement upwards to empower and a movement downwards to depower. You're turning up the power volume, you're turning down the power volume. All this to lead into this idea of competition as indigenous within our power species. And this is really great. You get into the thick of it in the entire chapter, but just to quickly dance through this information, indigenous is taken into English from Latin, di and gignere, Gignere, which meant to beget. In English, however, it's changed into a definition of produced, growing, or living naturally in a particular region or environment. A synonym is native. So Ingo says one of the chief characteristics indigenous to this environment is competition, the environment being our human species. And if you look throughout history, you can see that there is plenty of evidence pointing to this idea. Ingo again drizzles in the idea that yes, force power is a great way, at least immediately, to deal with competitors, but baked into society, we have seen that the warding off prophylactic solution is that stealth power move of preventing competitors from arising in the first place, keeping people depowered. And again, competition, it's natural. I would argue that to specify self-competition, competition with self is the way to go. Competition with others is a great way to sharpen and grow. But when it comes to this very tilted situation that we have baked in suppression of competition, we have an issue. If we could, again, referencing that map of hidden depowerment supermoves, if we could all have access to the strategy guide, then the competition matches could be played out and we could learn and grow from each other. Ah, you use the get over here move that way. That's cool. But if only some people have access to the super moves and combos, well, we're going to have a tilted scale situation here. But this brings me to the excerpt from chapter 13, where throughout all of this, even though there may be a serious depowerment situation set up in society so that competitors don't even get to become competitors in the first place because they don't have access to the strategy guide. They don't even know a Hadooken is possible. Even so, because power is innate in the species as a whole, each and every single human being is still a carrier of power. Take a quick listen. I'll be right back. Hypothetically speaking, if via depowerment measures one's power volume has been turned down too low, one will be unable to sense power, or at least not very well. Further, if the power energy level has been turned down or reduced in important ways, one might no longer even have the smallest hint of power energy reserves. As a collective, these then would constitute those who feel they are powerless, because even if they can still sense the powers within them, they can neither hear, feel, nor sense what those powers are. They cannot know that they, as living, animated, and animating humans, are still carriers of power. I love it. Yes. You can turn down the volume all the way, even to the point where you don't even sense it. It's still there, just waiting to have that dial turn back up again. And so that point made earlier in the book, if there were no powerless masses, whom would the powerful have power over to exert their control, authority, and influence? This is to say that we, the carriers of power, even though the volume has been turned down, cannot be completely done away with. And so the situation is put together for this depowerment situation that a lot of us find ourselves in. Okay, that's the fact, but now we are recognizing it more and more. And the more we recognize it, the more that map gets defogged, and the more we start to learn some really cool super moves. Blanca's electric move, right? Don't get too close. E-Honda's super fast hands. Back up, back up. I'm getting into my own individual empowerment. I could be referencing video games all day. Let's get to a point where we all get a Hadooken with our fists on fire. Thank you, Ken. Okay, to close out the episode, and at the end of this chapter, Ingo presents this fun thought experiment. Discover at least 3 important species innate powers which must be depowered in order to reduce the populations of power competitors. Just something to think about. What are 3 important powers that are innate within each and every one of us that need to be turned down in order for this system to keep chugging away? To me, the first one that comes to mind is that heightened sense of intuition, that tapping into our subtle sense. And a great way that the power structure has imposed a limitation on that access is by saying that, you got 5 physical senses, focus on the material, distract, distract, distract. I would say the cognitive ability of consideration is one of them that very recently has been depowered on overdrive, to be able to hold a thought in your mind without deciding whether or not you agree or disagree with it, without automatically identifying with it or its opposite, but simply holding that idea in mind and turning it around in your mind, looking at the various angles at which it can be viewed, not subscribing to it one way or another, but simply acknowledging and exploring it. That, I think, is a species-wide power. We all have that ability to consider deeply, and yet society is telling us more and more, no, get emotionally invested to the point where you are either immediately for or against. Do not consider, only react. Pick your team and stick with it. I think that's a big one for me. So we've got 2 there. I would be very curious, what do you all think would be a third species-wide intrinsic power that must be depowered in order to keep on keeping on in the way the structure is set up? Having a good time here with y'all. I hope you got my Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat references. Ooh, there's a third one. Active imagination. Actually engaging actively in your imagination, which I think video games can help you do. Video games can lay a neat basis for you to imagine what your life would be like as a ninja with a cool spear that flows out of your hand. Or what would it take for you to focus a chi ball to the point of throwing a Hadooken at somebody or something? I mean, that's cool. That's cool to imagine. That's cool to actively engage in. And that will only strengthen and lengthen and stretch out and deepen your imagination. And doing that is a species-wide human power. And of course, you can get all of this and more listening to me read to you the entirety of Volume 1 of Secrets of Power. Now available on Audible. Visit my website, mist3rdouglas.com. You can also find me on Twitter. And absolutely visit ingoswann.com. Find out where this is all coming from. Follow it to the source. ingoswann.com. Here's wishing you more and more access to the strategy guide. And throw some serious sonic booms. Guile. All right, I'm going to go play some video games. Catch you on the next one. More superpower moves to you. And thanks for hanging.